Everyone, Jodie Mintu here. I wanted to talk, and I know that I've talked about this before, grief and loss. I know that I have in separation and divorce, but it was just really highlighted to me when I attended court this week with one of my clients, just as a support person and someone that I guess was able to sort of distinguish the layman term language to what lawyers' language is, and definitely keeping proactive. So as I, always go into the family court system, I always feel it, that whole high conflict, that high emotion. And I definitely take my hat off to the people that work in these systems every day, because it's the moment you walk in that door, you can feel it. And it had me thinking again, as I was watching around the foyer, just people watching as you wait for your case to be seen and heard, and you start to think, you know these people are so emotional, and absolutely they should be, because they've separated and divorced, and they're going through all those stages of grief and loss. They say that people that separate and divorce, it's as good as losing someone who has passed away. But the point is that person's still very much alive, and you're definitely having to deal with them, especially if there's children involved, each time. And so it obviously makes it much harder. And there's 7 stages of grief and loss, and they don't just happen in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. They happen in waves. So, some days some people will feel really good about it, and then there'll be days where the anger will set in, or the depression will set in, or the pain and the fear will set in, the fear of the unknown. Where's this all headed? Sometimes our egos and our prides get in there, which, is an anger stage. And then there's that bargaining stage. Oh, well, maybe we'll be able to sort this out. And then there's the guilt stage. What did I do? Did I not handle things properly? Could I have done more? So there's lots of stages of grief and loss that they're all going through. And in all of this, they're having to make some very, 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 very important decisions. Decisions about them, their children, decisions about themselves, decisions that will affect the future, right? And when people are in this high emotional conflict stage, they don't generally, will think clearly or logically, and think, oh, hang on, I really need to be thinking about the child here, or the children. They will be in their world of pain and trying to deal with all this emotion. And I always think, if they had been given the therapy to work through that grief and loss, to understand it and understand, how they're feeling, and that it's okay to feel this way, and that it will go up in waves, and to give them the tools to help them make better decisions that aren't based out of emotion, but based with clarity and logic, would the thing be different? Would they be in court? Would they be able to talk to each other? That's a question, isn't it? And I always think that when, court cases are finished and done, and you hear about the ones that come back into court, and I always think, there's generally a parent that's probably dealt with that grief and loss, but then there's the other parent that still hasn't, still is harbouring all those pains and those thoughts. And is this why we're back in court? Because it really isn't life-threatening to the children, or it really is it coming from an ego or pride sort of position? I just wanted to have my thoughts on that again, and say that, if you are separated or divorced, dealing with the grief and loss is so important, so important, because you don't want to be making decisions out of emotions. Those decisions will affect your children, and you don't want them to have to then deal with that when they're older. You want to be able to think clearly. You want to be able to work through the pain and make logical decisions that eventually will stop you having to keep going around and round in circles. Just wanted to leave you with that. Grief and loss, it is definitely a very tragic journey, and one that's not as recognised in separation and divorce, especially when people are expecting these people to make logical decisions. You know, when a solicitor's saying, well, you've got to make a decision about this. You know, we've got this letter and you've got to come up with a decision. You know, that sort of stuff. That's why I think a therapist is, you know, really important to help work through all of that grief and loss so that there's good clarity, good logical thinking coming through. Just wanted to leave you with that. Probably check in tomorrow with what book I've been reading this week. And grief and loss, you really need to get that sorted. Bye.